The following is presented as an entertainment program emphasizing folklore. It is not intended as legal or medical advice in any way and should not be used to replace the advice of a legal or medical professional. New World Witchery is a Patreon-supported podcast. This episode is sponsored in part by a listener, Jamie. We greatly appreciate the efforts you've made to warp the fabric of time to keep us young and beautiful podcasters forever, Jamie. Thank you.
If you'd like to become a patron and help support the show while also getting some great perks, please visit www.patreon.com/New World Witchery, where you can pledge $1 a month or whatever you can to help us repair the hole in the space-time continuum that seems to be letting in temporal demons and for which we take absolutely no responsibility. And thanks to all of our listeners.
Are you looking for magic? Maybe magic that lives right where you do?
If so, join us aboard our broomsticks and ride with us from the Atlantic to the Pacific, from the Yukon to the Yucatan, and find magic that's right outside your front door or just off of Route 66.
Whether you're in the Windy City or the Crescent City, the city that never sleeps, or the city of brotherly love, we've got enchantment for you.
I'm Cory.
And I'm Lane, and this is New World Witchery.
Let's do the time warp again.
It's a simple jump to the left. And we are doing a magical retrospective about New World Witchery. Then and now.
And then a step to the right.
Put your hands on your hips.
Okay, we gotta.
I know, like how many can we go? We gotta stop.
Yeah, at some point, people are gonna start actually doing the dance, and then we have road accidents that are being blamed on us. So, hi, Lane.
Hi.
Welcome to 2025. Now we are jumping into this. It's going to be our 15th year of podcasting, which is kind of crazy.
That is.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, longer than a lot of things. Never mind. I don't want to compare.
You don't want to. You don't. Yeah, we'll get into what life was back and what life was like back from when this all began. But yeah, no, like there's also the like grim realization was that, I think I'm gonna have been podcasting with Lane longer than I was alive with my mother. Like at some point that was, or longer than my mother was, alive at the same time I was. I was like, that's a grim realization, isn't it? But yeah, so that's a long time. So
yes, it is.
Yeah. But we are in 2025, Year of the Snake. For those who don't know, we did start something new this year, which are festival episodes. So just about 6 times a year, 7 times for patrons, we're doing little episodes that are just kind of like celebration episodes with folklore, magic, music, stuff like that to sort of get people in the mood for certain kinds of festival seasons that are upon us. And so our first one was Festival of the Snake to celebrate Year of the Snake back in January. We'll have hopefully another one coming up pretty soon as well. So, but yeah, but it is 2025. How have things been with you?
Okay. I'm holier now.
Please elaborate, because I can already see the puzzled faces on many listeners' messages.
I got some new piercings, which I'm excited about. They're just like second, lobe holes. That sounds real gross, but whatever.
How are your lobe holes doing, Lane?
They're great. Thanks for asking. No, it's wonderful. They're healing great. And we went to a piercing parlor, and my daughter kind of watched just to see the process, I guess, and then got hers done a week later. So
Thanks.
That was nice. Yeah. So we're healing together, and yeah, it was fun. And then I got a tattoo, like a big one, like, I don't know, a few days later, I guess. And I was just like, yay, body mods all over the place. Not anything crazy really, but.
I mean, the tattoo's a pretty big tattoo. So
it is. It was about 5 hours. It was intense.
Yeah, but you did it all in one sitting, which is, you were a trooper on that one. So.
Yeah. She was like, we can do it. I'm like, all right, let's do it.
And you did. And I think I saw it the same day you got it. And I was like, that's awesome. So
yes, there were lots of all caps, and I was very excited.
Yes.
As you were like, I'm sorry for the all caps. I was like, no, don't be sorry.
The all caps are warranted. Yeah. Very, very cool. Love that. Yeah.
How about you? Anything new with you? Any body modifications?
Not yet. Still, I am craving a tattoo. I've been craving one for a minute. I've been wanting to do one that's kind of a you inspired tattoo because it was sort of in honor of our book that we did together.
So my next one is, as you know, but I'm sure a lot of kind of older listeners know when I've talked about it before. I have a tattoo of a skeleton key on my left hip. And I plan to add a compass kind of in that area just because compass and key, and it as well as sort of like a thing for Cory and our, like our friendship, and then the book as well. And sorry to interrupt you, but
no, you're fine.
I have plans as well, and I'm
exactly.
with you.
Yeah, and I think my plan is to do a raccoon, which is kind of one of the animals I associate with you.
Yeah, as you should. I mean, Tennessee, trash animal. Yeah.
Dark rings under the eyes will
rings.
bite. But that, and then for those who don't know, like I got one tattoo when I published the new World Witchery book, and he's my librarian of Congress. He's like a black bear, but he has the Library of Congress designation for the section that our book would in theory be in, sort of incorporated into his fur. So I'm kind of hoping to do something similar with the raccoon for ours. But even if I don't do that, then I'm just definitely gonna get like a little folk art raccoon to be sort of laying on my arm forever,
Aw, thank you. Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Tattoos are addictive too.
They really are. I love tattoos. So. But I've got that going on, working on lots of different writing projects. I've got chapters for a couple things I'm working on and a new book, actually a couple new books that I'm working on. We'll just kind of see which one lands first at this point. But yeah, lots happening. I've got to interview one of my favorite horror authors for our show I think it should be the episode that precedes this one, the Grady Hendrix interview, he's written a bunch of horror novels that are kind of horror comedy. But his most recent one was Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. And it's all about these young women in a 70s maternity home who discover the power of witchcraft to help them. It's very like, well, that's on brand. I'm just going to send him a message and see what he thinks. And he was in. So I was happy to do that.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really neat when you get to like talk to people that you're like, I don't have any real reason to be talking to you, but I'm really glad I am.
Yes.
Which is kind of how I felt when we first started hanging out. But it was like, I don't know. Do we have anything in common? I don't know. Well, I like the moon. Do you like the moon?
But how do you like the moon?
Oh, I like it so much. Do you like it so much as well?
But in like a secular way or like a weird way? Like me.
Porque no los dos.
Exactly.
Yes. So, which I guess kind of segues us back into, that takes us back a little further in the show, back to when we met, but
that's true.
We are sort of time traveling back with this episode. I'm going to talk about. Oh, I should have done the doodly doo instead of the time warp. That was so good. Oh my goodness. But we launched our first episode in January of 2010. Just to give you some context for that was the year of the Deepwater Horizon event. So not great. Haitian earthquake, also not great. Instagram launched. We're all a little still jury's out on that one, I guess. I don't know. Fidget spinners, I have no problem with those. They're fine. The top song that year was TikTok by Kesha.
How prescient.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Whoa, jinx. On the SAT word, my friend.
Indeed. Oh, and WikiLeaks happened that year as well. So we're going to be kind of imagining ourselves kind of back. I did go back and listen to some of those early episodes. Going to talk a little bit about kind of where that all was, what the magic that we were doing at the time looked like, why we kind of got into the show at that point in time. And then I think sort of talk about, well, how have we evolved? How have things changed for us over time? And then, what does it look like when your witchcraft practice is evolving in this way? So yeah. So do you remember anything about the first episode? Have you happened to go back and listen to it at all?
Not for a little while, but I do remember recording it. I remember feeling nervous and like kind of short of breath, just because I was like not used to talking into the mic and like some of it was pretty scripted, if I remember.
It was very scripted. Yes.
And that is always really difficult for me because it is so obvious when I'm reading from a script. I'm not an actor. I've never been able to do it. I can't. So anyway, it's so clear when I'm reading from a script. It's bad. So yeah, I much prefer the conversational approach that we have together.
Yeah, we abandoned anything scripted, I think, really by the second episode. Like, I think we still had, we've always had like notes and, you know, outlines and guidance and stuff like that. But as for like, here's the thing that we will actually say, other than like our intros and stuff, like,
yeah, of course, those have to be
that pretty quick. Yeah.
Because if there's nothing scripted there, we learned very quickly that we would stumble and not know what to say at all. And it was bad. So we had to start writing them out.
We did indeed. So yeah, so way back then though, we kind of launched this whole thing talking about what we were hoping to accomplish. And we had this kind of mission statement, and I may try to cut that and put that in here so people can sort of hear what we were trying to do in that first episode.
Okay.
But we really were saying, like, we are witches practicing in North America. And at the time in 2010, a lot of what was sort of dominant in the witchy media space was either Wicca, which is fine. Like, we've never been like, Wicca is bad people. Like, that's just not where we are with this. Or there was some sort of, you know, focus on like what was called traditional witchcraft at the time. And this idea of, again, this sort of more rooted witchcraft, but it was definitely kind of still inflected by sort of European or British traditions. And we sort of thought, well, we're both North American, and we're really interested in the stuff that happens here, stuff that's sort of rooted here. And so we were trying to explore all the different magical systems that we could find here. And I think at the time we were like, and there's 5 of them, so that'll take a little while. Now we're like, oh, there are so many more.
Right.
Like, this could take a year or 2 to get through. Good. Could take longer than that.
Just a few.
Yeah. So yeah. So do you remember kind of that feeling and that early exploration?
Yeah, I do. I don't know. It was a fun time. Like, just because I was very, I don't know, I just like all the concepts I had were kind of what I had learned from, you know, with friends who had like more experience in witchcraft than me, which I think is how a lot of people learn, since, you know, it's not necessarily like an organized religion. I mean, I know you can find like organized covens or things of that nature, but anyway, most people kind of learn through the internet or through friends or whatnot. So I had always kind of performed rituals in certain ways and never really strayed from that. And, you know, you had kind of showed me a few different approaches to things, or just like not doing something altogether. And that was really new and kind of not even groundbreaking. Like, sorry to use the phrase, like circle breaking, you know, like it just, I don't have to cast a circle to do this stuff like, immediately. Like, you know, like just things like that I never really questioned, that were sort of dogmatic, that I don't necessarily need in my life, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That sort of sense of like, hey, magic doesn't just have to be and not that it was always this, but it doesn't have to be a spiritual exercise. It can be a thing you do to get results, which feels really, you know, kind of like an obvious statement, but there really was a kind of mentality that kind of, I think, comes out of the 80s and 90s sort of magical practice, where there was a very strong spiritual side tied into it. I'm not saying that doesn't still exist, but we were starting to recognize like, oh, magic doesn't necessarily have to be about, you know, working with a particular deity to accomplish something, right? It can just be like, put this stuff together and get the raise that you're looking for, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I've actually not struggled. I don't know if that's the right word, but I've dealt with that and sort of that feeling over the past few years. Maybe we can get into that later, but yeah, that's definitely something I've noticed as well. So
yeah, and it is an ingrained sort of way of thinking, I think, for a lot of folks that grew up in our age demographic. And I think younger people coming into witchcraft are sometimes less laden with that baggage, but that doesn't mean it's not still there. I think that there are plenty of people who do still come into magic and witchcraft who are coming from this idea of like, I kind of want to push back against the organized religion that I had, and I found this other system that taps into a spirituality I believe in, and the magic that is already sort of attached to that is connected to the spirituality, which is fine. It's a really useful thing. But then they start to sort of see like, oh, well, wait, there's this other side of magic or this other sort of way of using magic that doesn't necessarily mean that I have to like set up a circle and invoke, directions or watchtowers or things like that. But I can just sort of be like, I need to put a bay leaf in my shoe so that I, have a better chance of, success today or something like that. So.
And that's all like what we're saying is very Wicca based. But that's not to say that what Cory then described, the bay leaf in the shoe couldn't also be kind of like weaponized, because I feel like that is more the case now, when before it was like the only good practice is one that is spiritual and, that calls in the Lord and Lady and that sort of thing. And it has since morphed to more of the witch talk and, like reels and things of that nature. And you get the people who are kind of, I don't know if this is the right word, but prescriptivist when it comes to like rituals and things. And it's like, well, okay, you put the bay leaf in your shoe, but you put it in the wrong shoe and you put it on and you didn't like tie your shoelaces backwards and then you didn't walk backwards out of your house. So therefore it doesn't work. Sucks to be you. And it's sort of that same like high level being held to new witches that are being held to, but just for different things now.
Right. Yeah. And then they sort of turn around and be like, and that's why you have cancer now. And you're like, whoa, what? That's what are you even doing? Yeah. So I think you're right. I think that, and I don't think that prescriptivism is entirely a new thing. I think that existed, but it was obviously not as connected. Like you didn't have people that were able to sort of, you didn't have to see it daily, in those sort of earlier days of, learning about the stuff. But, our podcast has been a part of it's us, we're the problem. Like we were part of like, well, this should be more democratized. It should be available to everybody. We should be talking about all this stuff. And that was, of course, we were not really thinking about the idea of closed practices at the time. We have since learned quite a lot about that. And we try to be as respectful as we can and, not share stuff that does seem to fall behind kind of a curtain or a wall, while still sort of acknowledging like, hey, this system exists and we want to talk to people who are practicing this system about what they're willing to share, so. But I mean, at the time I was learning, and I think this is kind of part of what was influencing our journey. I was learning a good bit about what was being sort of framed as hoodoo at the time. I think I would reframe that a little bit more as what I would think of as Southern Conjure now.
Okay.
Southern Conjure incorporates elements of hoodoo incorporates elements of Southern Conjure. There's just, hoodoo is much more distinctly African American. And I feel like, you kind of do have to be ingrained in the African American community to really get depth on that. That's not to say that you can't learn about hoodoo. It's not to say that you can't understand aspects of hoodoo or that you can't be something other than African American and use hoodoo. I think that people can. But I just think that what I was actually learning at the time had elements of hoodoo in it, but it was much more sort of Southern Conjure oriented in that it was pulling from a lot more like Appalachian folk magic than just African American folk magic. So, but in doing that, like that was something that we started talking about. We started sharing some of the stuff that we were learning. We would make our own oils and things like that and do some fun spells based on that stuff. And I don't know, we had a good time with it, I think. So,
yeah, I like to think we were as respectful as possible with the knowledge that we had at the time. And I like to think that as we gained more knowledge and, things happened in the world, that we updated our knowledge.
Yeah, I would think you were going to say as respectful as we were naive. And I was like, that is an accurate way to put it.
I mean, yeah, a little bit, yeah. But that's okay. It's I've always said, like, we're not here to be experts. We're not here to always be right. Like we can be, called out or, come on here and say, hey, we were wrong about this. We've done that before, whether individually or as a podcast, whatever. So
for sure. Yeah. And I think that's a growing experience for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I'm very grateful for because I don't want to just be still thinking the same thing about witchcraft that I thought 20 years ago, Yeah,
absolutely. For sure.
So yeah, really grateful.
Yeah. And I mean, back at that point in time, I had started learning about I was actually taking, I think, a Saint Magic course from somebody they were a current charisma practitioner. So there was some of that in there, but it was mostly about sort of Saint Magic and Saint folklore and Saint stuff. which kind of got me tapped back into some of my Catholic roots too. And that sort of helped me see some interesting angles on stuff that I grew up with. So it really was a sort of self-discovery process as much as it was learning about, magic that was sort of outside of our immediate experience at the time. So
can I ask something personal, and feel free to cut this, obviously, if you need to. Did you feel like it brought you closer to your mom in that, or either parent? I can't remember if both were Catholic or if it was just your mother.
My mom was the Catholic one.
Okay.
And yes, it did. Absolutely. It did. It was a thing where it made me feel like, this gives me a portal into understanding, because there were magical things that we did even when I was a kid that kind of, we just did because she was an Irish Catholic and there was already folk magic built into it. But then sort of relearning that and sort of seeing like, here's kind of what was going on with that. Why pray to St. Anthony, Well, okay, he's the patron saint of lost things, but then there's this like little charm that you can do. And like, so that becomes a part of my practice, but also sort of says like, oh, hey, I learned this, in conjunction with, growing up with my mom. So it makes me feel a little closer to her. It's kind of an ancestral connection. It was nice. So,
yeah. And
I mean, that kind of gets to, again, I can cut this if you like, but I know that one of the things that happened fairly early on was that you had lost your dad.
So I lost my dad in March of 2009. His death anniversary was actually just like last week. Luckily, my mom and I spent it with my daughter. Like we went and painted pottery at this little, place, like nerds. And yeah, so it was right before we started, if we started in 2010.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that was definitely kind of something I think you were sitting with at the time. Oh yeah. I mean, it's still, obviously, the death of a parent who you care deeply about, who, because that is not the case for everybody, is obviously going to be very hard. And it still is, but it's wild to me that it was like 15, 16 years ago now. Yeah. But yeah, I still think about him almost every day and think about like what he might be like now, or think of certain things, or how I would have approached certain things if he were still in my life. But anyway, that's neither here nor there to do with witchcraft. But I do have a little kind of ancestral altar set up, and there's like a picture of me with him when I was like really little, a grave rubbing I did, some dirt from his grave, and a few little things to kind of represent him, and then a cigarette because he smoked. So, just a little like, here's some tobacco, Dad. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think that, I'm not saying that magic, was the reason that you did all that. I think a lot of people do things like that, whether or not they do magic, but I think it was one of those things that we had discussed the idea of ancestor altars fairly early in the show. And I think that was something where I don't know if you took inspiration from that or not, but it definitely, I think, helped in the sense of like, well, what should go on an ancestor altar, like, so, but I don't know, that may not be true. I don't know if that's true or not. So I think so. Probably. Yeah. Cause I don't know that I would have even, I didn't have one for the longest time just cause I didn't really have a place to put it, that I was always, afraid. I was always hiding. I was always hiding part of myself. That's something that's a major change from when we started, is I was fully in the, broom closet and kind of content to stay there. And it was a huge deal for me to really remain anonymous. And I still try to remain anonymous with a little bit of more like lax security. That sounds so silly, but I'm not like, Cory, please cut that, every single time we mention like where we're from or something, but I'm still cautious. People can be really weirdly vindictive over small things on the internet. So, yeah, I try to be careful. I'm just saying, but, yeah, it was a big deal to kind of put myself out there, I guess. And I'm really glad I did, obviously. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's been, I don't know, it's been a really neat thing to see you sort of claim that. Not that I feel like anybody has to. I think people can be in the broom closet about stuff and be perfectly legitimate. But like, it was really neat to see you a couple of years ago really be like, I've got to have this tough conversation with somebody about this. But also, I kind of want to be open about it and not hiding anymore. So
Yeah.
I love that.
And it's so funny because I remember we got a comment at the time when I had first talked about it, about how like I was in the broom closet, was not going to tell my mother. And we talked about kind of some of the thoughts behind that and whatnot. And somebody had commented and just said like, like you're basically just lying to your mother, and it really like got on my case about it. And I was like, no, I feel like I'm doing her what I feel is best for her at this point. I don't know that she could have handled that from me at that point.
Yeah, I think there had to be some other work done between the two of you first, which I think has been done. I think both of you are in great places with each other now, and
absolutely, and in our own lives that are a little bit better. So
absolutely,
yeah. So that's a big change.
Yeah. Now, magic back then, well, I should say, very early we talk about doing a hex together, which we had done, and we talked about that several times on the show. We talked about job spells, like you'd done a job spell for your husband at one point. We did spells to help you at work at that point in time because you were working in a situation that wasn't your favorite. Mm-hmm. So, and both of us, we were doing things like, I think I mentioned the making the oils thing. So we were learning how to make different types of condition oils and
the success oil that we made together is still like, knock on wood, I guess, like not to, I'm going to using it, it's going to spoil. Like I'm always afraid when I say things like that. That's what I'm like tempting fate with. That's how my brain works apparently. But like it has been the most successful success oil I've ever used. You know what I mean? Like it's always been something happens with it when I've used it.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely seems to have its own momentum, and I appreciate that it does. So, but yeah, I mean, we were working with, a lot of, trying to learn different herbs and, we were learning, I mean, I still remember some of our early like ritual practices where we did like the treading the mill thing. And we were, trying to celebrate holidays together and stuff like that. And so there was a lot, I mean, we were very active kind of in our witchcraft early, even though we also spent one of those very early episodes talking a lot about cold spells and the idea that, sometimes you got to take a break, as well. So, I mean, I feel like you've kind of rekindled some of your witchy energy, even if it's not necessarily in the sense of like you doing, spells all the time. Like I just get the sense that you sort of tapped back into some of that energy recently. Does that feel true?
Yeah, actually. Yeah, for sure. Not to get like graphic or anything, but I feel like, okay, first of all, I'm pretty sure I'm perimenopausal, which is also a big change and not fun because, you guys first met me when I was young and, no 10-year-old in sight. And yeah, that has definitely changed. But what was my point? I'm sorry, I lost it.
The tapping back into your witchy power.
Yes. Okay. So perimenopausal, that usually ups your sex drive. And that has definitely been the case for me. So I think that's part of it, of just, and like owning it and just feeling like really good in my skin and myself and just like, like, I don't know. I don't want to go into it anymore, but yeah, it's been good. That part's been good. And yes, I definitely just feel more like myself in certain ways. I don't know. Other ways it's hard because my mental health has been not great when it comes to certain things, but like, I guess my physical feelings about myself, which usually like really, used to weigh me down, are not as much anymore. So.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of that comes with the territory of, getting older and, having responsibilities too. But no, I love that. And I also think like, if I'm not mistaken, you're even like, you're spending, like you have a lot of kind of like girls' time, and particularly with people who I think at least one or two of them were in your sort of quote unquote original coven, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We've had like a group chat for a few years now, and it's titled Coven.
I love it.
And yeah, we were able to get together, 3 of us, missing one, unfortunately, but back in October, I think or like November, we were able to get together, all 4 of us. And yeah, it's all 4 were originally kind of practiced together. And I'm actually hoping to get a tattoo for them as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, little like 4 sparkly, twinkly looking stars on my arm somewhere. But yeah,
that's fun. You have your little constellation of coven mates. I love that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's and all different stars too. So that we all we all have our own personality, obviously. Mm-hmm. Obviously. But yeah, I don't know. What else? What else can we talk about?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, we've had a lot of other kind of shifts and changes kind of between then and now. Mm-hmm. I mean, back then I just had my first kid, which they're now about to start. Well, they are already driving. That's a wild thing.
That is so wild. I'm about to pop a soda. So I'm sorry. Hold on. Okay.
All right. But yeah, so that was kind of big. And I mean, it's so weird, like everything that can happen in that sort of 15-year span. I'd been married for a little while at that point. So that was part of my life. A few years later, we got a dog and all that kind of things. You had, if I remember correctly at the time, 3 dogs when we started that. So,
yeah.
And I mean, you had your kid not too long after I had my second kid. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, just a lot of adding and subtracting, I think, in life in that time period. So,
yeah. And then right after I had my daughter, I got sick.
You got an MO. Yeah.
Yeah. Which has obviously been huge as well. Changed trajectory of my life, I feel like.
Yeah.
But, what are you going to do?
Yeah. And I'm not like it changed your life for the better. God gives his toughest challenges to his strongest word. Like, it's not that crap, but it's definitely the sense of like, I think that it has, that your experience with it has, made you aware of things in different ways that maybe you wouldn't have been aware of otherwise, obviously. Mm-hmm. But you've also shown a lot of resilience over the years due to dealing with it. And you fiercely fought for the time that you have with your kid. You fiercely fought for the things that you are trying to enjoy, So I think it's good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I appreciate you. So.
Aw, thanks.
Yeah. So, I mean, with all that, and I, mentioned the dogs, I do think that, losing our pets through the years has been kind of world shaking in its own way. It's weird. And you have cats again now.
Yes.
But it is weird to go from being a pet household to a non-pet household as a magical practitioner, because I don't know, there's something about the energy of having an animal in the house that's very different. So
yes, especially one that is interested when you do witchcraft. That is like, oh, what are you doing over here? Because I thought one cat would be more interested, but it was actually the other, who's kind of my little familiar friend. So
your little helper.
Yes.
Yeah. So, well, okay. So with all the kind of intervening life stuff, I mean, over the years, we've done a lot of, so we've interviewed tons of people from tons of different paths, right? Mm-hmm. So we've had people that practice everything from sort of herbalism, and people who practice, I mentioned Southern Conjure, have people who practice hoodoo. We've had people who practice just we had curanderismo practitioners, brujeria practitioners, we've really tried to cover quite a gamut of folk magic in North America. And yet, I would also say, despite all that, I think there is still a lot of folk magic to be explored here.
Well, there's such a balance that we tried to strike. I don't know that we did a good job or not of exploring new things and trying to educate on what we found and then sharing that out, but also not just talking out our ass about something that we have absolutely no knowledge of.
Right.
So,
which is largely why we would try to get people to come on and
exactly.
Hey, we're kind of dumbasses about this. Would you please tell us what we don't know? So, and people have been
I've been turned into a cow. Can I go home?
Right. Yeah, you got excused. But yeah, and just having those people that are willing to come on, and so many people are. That I love that. I do think also one of the really nice things that I've seen happen, and just thinking about kind of witchcraft trends in this past 15 years, right? Mm-hmm. The fact that folk magic has become such a forefront area of magic where a lot of people are seeing it, a lot of people are interested in it, whether they're coming at it from kind of the more sort of cottage core side of things, which is fine, or whether they're kind of coming at it from more of the sort of like traditional practices of their ancestry. All of that is really, really wonderful. And I really love that we're actually starting to see so many more practitioners from those traditions that are coming forward and talking about their own traditions, so that like it doesn't have to be like two white people like asking questions the whole time.
Right.
So yeah, I've appreciated that a lot. I don't know. Is that something? Do you feel like that's true? Do you feel like we have seen that?
Yeah. I definitely feel like I've seen more just diversity in witchcraft, not only in the people who practice it, but in the practices themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's a good thing. I think I'm good. I'm definitely good with that.
Yeah, for sure. No, I love that. I mean, you're really actually, I think, one of the better trend spotters I know in terms of like being able to sort of see arcs of things over time.
Ooh,
like,
thank you. That is actually like one of the best compliments I've ever gotten.
Oh, really? No, it's true. It's very true. Like, I definitely think like you see those evolutions really well. So I'm kind of curious if you had to look at like, if you had to think about like, if people talked about, either witchcraft or folk magic 2010 and witchcraft folk magic today, what's that arc look like to you?
Well, it's like I was talking about earlier. It's more like from the religious side and working with certain deities to more of the ritual that doesn't necessarily involve a deity, but that involves like certain tools and certain herbs and the aesthetics of it, because like, for example, during the pandemic, we were all very visual. It was like very visual mediums of, like I said, TikTok and Reels and YouTube Shorts and all that. That most people have kind of gravitated towards. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of long form videos that are very popular still for people who are looking for it, but a lot of people are looking for the short form videos now as well. And I think that influenced witchcraft in an interesting way.
How so? Like, you feel like, well, I mean, I guess you kind of already said, like, sometimes it can be very, very prescriptive because people only see the 30-second snippet that says, if you do it this way, you're basically going to catch on fire. But I don't know, like, but do you feel like are there benefits? I guess the benefits that you already outlined was that there's just a lot more diversity, right?
Yeah, that's the other thing is like, we are not beholden to publishers anymore. And I hesitate to say that because you are like with one of the big publishers. So I don't mean that as like a knock against you or anyone who has published through those big publishers, or because don't get me wrong, like every book I have,
Sure, yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I hold so much love and respect for them and for those authors and everything. But, when you're a publisher, you have to think about the numbers of what you think will sell and what has sold in the past, and you are less likely to take risks. And so when it comes to this media that we can so much more easily get out to people, whether it be self-publishing videos or self-publishing a book, it's just easier to get into people's hands, and it's, less likely to be like, well, you're not white enough, or you're not, in this tax bracket enough, Yeah. And I'm not saying that like Llewellyn ever said that or thought that even necessarily as a company, but I'm saying like culturally that is what we tended towards.
Yeah, it's less of an intentional exclusion, more of a bubble. Like it's more of a sense that like this is what has sold, so we are going to continue to try to produce stuff that's kind of as close to that as we can get because we know the numbers, right? But
it's so frustrating because it kind of that argument bleeds into other hobbies of mine, which is like doll collecting. People get very angry because a lot of the secondhand dolls that go for so much are the African-American dolls, the black dolls, and the Addie molds, which are the ones that look more, like African-American with her facial features. And it's like, look at the secondhand market. Look how much people are paying for these dolls. We want more black dolls.
Right.
And American Girl or Barbie or whomever, Mattel or Hasbro, I don't know, won't necessarily give it to us. Or they'll say black dolls don't sell as well when you're only marketing to rich white women. Of course they won't. So it's not necessarily the same thing, but it's sort of a an Ouroboros, where it just kind of, eats itself, and it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point. It's like, yeah, you will only sell white dolls if that is all that people are going to have an option for.
Right.
Or if the one black doll that you have out, like, you don't give any, love to, like advertising or anything like that, or collection, anything.
Right.
So the same with witchcraft.
Yeah.
And we don't have, if the only thing that is out is kind of Irish and English based Wicca, or, maybe you might get some Egyptian sometimes, because that was kind of a thing in the 90s as well.
Sure, yeah.
Because, the Mummy, hello.
Oh, yeah.
We've talked about that.
Yeah.
Your sexual awakening, hello.
Exactly, right? Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess that's my point. But
yeah, and I mean, I think, and again, that, maybe I'm not trying to I'm not saying like it was a right choice or a good decision, but you can see sort of like from the perspective of somebody running a business, you want your business to do well. And so they kind of stick with the bubble. But one of the things I think it was really wonderful, I'm not giving credit to like us for this, but the fact that like media like podcasts, like short form video and things like that appeared, was that all of a sudden you had practitioners from so many different paths putting stuff out there. And you really could see, hey, wow, that thing racked up 1 million views, right? Or that thing racked up, 10,000 listens. Well, okay, there's a market for that now. And now you can make that argument. And I think publishers were really responsive to that once they saw it.
Yeah.
It's just, it took something to sort of say like, hey, there's a market outside the market you're using. You just, it's, you have to do it a certain way, and there has to be some authenticity to it. And if you do that, then you can reach people that you haven't reached before. And I think publishers, again, like wanted that. I think they'll, I've, know from talking to them, they want that stuff, but they have to balance that against the bottom line too. So being able to say like, hey, that has 10,000 views is a good way to say like, that's a bottom line I can go for, right? That's a risk I can take because there's something in there, but
right.
So that's been helpful.
Yeah. So that's not to necessarily turn like our practice into just monetary stuff,
right? Yeah,
yeah. I don't mean to say that at all. I'm just, I don't know. I guess when it comes to all this stuff, I've kind of just been thinking of it more in like the more recent media stuff. But yeah, I mean, podcasts were really like the landscape of podcasting has changed like 3 times since we've been doing this.
Yes.
So that is something as well, I feel like.
Yeah. No, I mean, I still think about some of the people that we used to know from podcasting, Velma Nightshade and Jillian and all kinds of folks. And many of them are still friends. Many of them I still count as friends. Some of them I still keep very close in touch with. Some of them still have shows.
Or like that I've never, I haven't talked to in years, but if I saw them and, it would be like, oh my God, how are you? Like there would be no weirdness or anything.
Yeah. So
at least on my part. I hope there wouldn't be on theirs, but you never know.
Hopefully not.
I can be a weirdo sometimes. It's fine.
It's fine. But yeah, and I mean, I think it really is this thing where like we had a lot of people who were kind of getting their voices out there because podcasts and things like that have been able to, give voice to people who didn't have another platform. And now, we really do see like, oh yeah, there are people who are very interested in Appalachian folk magic, and not just this like superficial kind of like Wicca in the mountains, but like they really want to know about some of the like the Foxfire level folk practices and things like that. And I think that's wonderful. There's a lot more, burgeoning interest in folklore in general, I think.
I agree. As a folklorist yourself, like, do you agree with that? Like, is that an actual assessment? Do you feel like folklore in general has kind of become more popular? Are people more interested in folklore and folk magic?
Yeah, well, one, I should say, when we started this, I was very much an amateur folklorist, and now I am technically a professional folklorist. So that is...
You're a doctor of it.
I am a doctor. I'm not a doctor who can do you any good if you're choking on something, but, well, that's not true. I can do the Heimlich, but...
I would trust you to do the Heimlich, seriously.
Yeah.
You're strong.
If nothing else, I'd make you feel really comfortable as you choke to death, because I'm very bear huggy. But no, so I think... And I do think that, there's a danger with this, the same as there's a danger in sort of the study of magic, that people can sort of run with folklore and think, oh, well, it's something that anybody can do, anybody can get access to, and therefore anything counts. Anything is right. Anything is true. And I think that was something, there was a minute there where back in the Twitter days, there was a thing called Folklore Thursday, which would do, people would just sort of share folklore on Thursday, and they would tag it and it would get kind of reshared and shared around. And there was a lot of stuff that would get shared around that was like, oh, that's not actually rooted in anybody's cultural practices. That's something that's been sort of picked up and repeated by people inaccurately. And, it's fine for folklore to do that, except you're now representing a culture that this has nothing to do with. So that was a little bit of a problem, but I think we've seen a little bit of a shift away from that. It is really funny to sort of see people talking about folklore in the sense of like, my lore started.
Yes.
Right?
Those have been really fun to see.
Yeah.
Yours is like, one of yours is definitely The Mummy, right?
Sure. Yeah. No. Yeah. My lore starts with the 1999 movie, The Mummy. That's definitely in there. But yeah, it's this sense of like people are starting to recognize, and I think that people have been into folklore for a long time, but even the like books that are really popular now, the romantasy books and the sort of other sort of fantasy oriented books, they're starting to build on folklore that they can find, right? Even horror novels, I've noticed. Like there was a novel by Amakatsu called The Hunger, which is all about a Native American spirit that, so it's lots of really interesting stuff that's kind of just finding its way into sort of more mainstream places. And I dig that. And I think, not for nothing, but we were into folklore before it was cool, right? But no, I think that was part of it, is that we were getting into it as everybody else was getting into it. And because of that, like, I like that we've been here for that ride. I like that we've been a part of that ride. So
yeah, same here.
Yeah. So, and I do think, you mentioned this whole thing about the deep dive videos. That's something, as much as I do think that there is this sort of, the 30-second to 90-second short form video that people will use to sort of talk about particular things. I do think that there are a lot of people who are like iceberg videoing very, very deeply into, folk magic, folklore, history, stuff like that. And I really like that people seem to have a hunger for that. They seem to want that stuff. They seem to want the deep dives, which has been really nice to see.
Yeah. I mean, I am honestly the type of person who's in the mood for both sometimes. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I love to just scroll through some shorts sometimes, but then I also have watched the like Star Wars Hotel Jenny Nicholson video at least 3 times, and that's a 4-hour video. So, I mean, I split up into chunks, but I'm just saying I've watched it. And so, yeah, I'm down with both, and I like to see both about witchcraft pop up too. And I do see them both, but I feel like it's just obviously easier to share the quick ones. And it's just, when you have to be faster, you have to be a little bit more, we'll do this, instead of being able to say, well, do this when it, it kind of depends on this, like we are able to do in our long form podcast.
Right. Yeah. And I think that there's something about that for me where like I tend to lean into the longer form stuff just because I do feel like I have more room for depth and understanding, and I'm old. So, and also, so I will say this, I've tried short form video. It's exhausting. Like trying to make it is exhausting because like there are people who are masterful at it and seem like they can basically do those 30, 60-second videos and, think of it, put it together, get it out there in, a couple of hours, really easily. But for me, anytime I tried to do a short form video, short of one really specific series that I did, it was hours of planning, hours of organizing. It was just like, no, this is the podcast involves research, which I love. And I can just sit and do that and talk about it. So I've enjoyed that.
I've thought about it myself. Like I don't know, like doing things with chronic illnesses and, or like, how I modify getting ready in the morning, things like that. Excuse me. And also like traveling with a chronic illness, like things to do in Budapest, because I'm there about once a year now. But anywho, again, lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
No, just the different styles of video.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. It's very intimidating to me. So I've not even like pushed past just thinking about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, But who knows? I mean, maybe there's still some of that in the future for us. Maybe there's, but I also love that there's just so many people that are sharing their thoughts and their ideas and exploring more. So we're seeing a lot of different perspectives, and I like that. Let me ask you this. This is maybe a little bit of a, I don't want it to be a trap, but it's a trap. So in thinking about kind of how your magic and magical practices have evolved, what was the last spell you remember doing, or what's a spell that you use frequently now, or something that you do frequently in sort of the magical, oeuvre?
I actually just did. I hesitate to call it this because it sounds like scientific or something, or like something from Buffy, but like a locator spell. Mm-hmm. But it's more like the lost things type of spell. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And my husband lost his wallet and was really upset about it because it had, obviously lots of important things. And we knew it was in the house. We just couldn't figure out where. And I finally was like, okay, let's just stop. Let me do this for a second. And I figured out where it was. And it was hidden in between the mattress and the bed frame. It had fallen down in between there. Uh-huh. And so I was like, yeah, here it is. And yeah, I don't know. I fully stand by that spell. And so that was just, I don't know, maybe a week ago. Uh-huh. And that's just a simple teeny little thing. That's not like, getting out certain dirts and oils and candles and things of that nature. That was just a quick little thing, but that's definitely magic to me.
Yeah. And then, I mean, could have gotten you burned at the stake at one point, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. And then another thing, and I'll try to keep it as vague as possible. We had a political ad come through our mail, and I did not want to see that motherfucker's face. So I ripped it up, and the part that had his face, I put in the litter box, and my cats pooped right on it, and it was really satisfying.
Nice. I love that.
And it was definitely like with intention. Like it wasn't just like a thing, I'm not saying like just that is a spell, but to me, it was a spell. Mm-hmm. So there's that.
Love that.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
And that was fairly recent as well. What about you? What have you done recently? What have you done recently, Cory?
Yes. What are you? You're the master magician.
What have you done for me lately?
Aw.
Ooh, yeah.
No. That's fine. This is a nostalgia episode, right?
Right.
So, let's go all the way back. We're going all the way back to the beginning of this week on Casey's Top 40.
Oh my God.
So I know. So one of the things I do, I have a kind of a fortune altar that I work with Fortuna, keep things in there. And one of the things I'll do is kind of cycle things in and out of it, to sort of spread blessings and spread, good luck basically. So spreading good fortune around while also, because it passes through my hands, hopefully bringing me good fortune. So I did that pretty recently. And was kind of moving some money out to use as a cash tip for somebody, and replacing it with some bay leaves and things like that to sort of just, keep things flowing. And then when I paid the cash tip out, I got this, how you get those little itches in your hand. We all talked about that. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And it was interesting because it was a payment itch, but it was like a good payment itch, like the hand that I normally associate with like sending money. I was like, well, that's weird. But the other thing was that I was working on filing my tax returns. So I was very afraid this year. So this is my first year filing single again as a divorcee, and I'm not claiming my kids. And so there's all this other stuff where I was like, oh my God, I think I'm going to have an enormous tax bill. And I knew I was going to pay something. I knew that for sure. But then I finally got information from the person preparing my taxes, and it came back and it was well under half of what I expected to pay. Oh, and I was like, okay, that I can deal with. I'm okay with that. So yeah, little, and it's kind of like what you said with the wallet, right? Very casual, integrated, daily sorts of magic, which I'm so satisfied with. I'm so satisfied that that's kind of the life that I have magically, where I can do spells. I know how to do more elaborate spells. I've got a Crown of Success oil and soap and things like that I'll use if I'm doing something where like I need to do a job interview or something like that, or have, if I'm pitching to a publisher or something like that, I'll, have that shower the day before. Right.
Yeah.
But just something casual, something very simple, very, very short, sweet, to the point. I don't know. That's been wonderful to see that become part of my life. And I really feel like this show has made that possible, where I really feel like magic is integrated daily.
Yes. Yeah. It's a lot more for me. Yeah. For sure.
Are there things that you still feel like you want to learn magically? Do you feel pretty solid where you are? Are there things that you're still looking to explore?
I mean, I feel like I always want to learn there's always more to learn. There's always something I could relearn. You know, like I feel like I've forgotten some things. I need to go back over. So yeah, I mean, I don't ever want to say I'm done learning or anything like that. I think that's kind of a weird place to be in personally. Like I'm done. Oh, okay. Because I don't know. I just think we can always stand to learn something new.
The phrase that you introduced to me was "every day's a school day."
That's right.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, are there specific systems or specific kinds of magic that still interest you that you haven't done as much with yet?
I mean, I would like to look into like more of Hungary and their stuff, I guess. Just because, my niece obviously is native. Is that the right word?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was born there. Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds weird though. But yeah, born there, and obviously will be speaking both languages because her mom talks to her in Hungarian when she can, but doesn't like to as much with my brother around, who doesn't speak as much Hungarian, obviously, as she speaks English. And she's like, I don't want it to seem like we have like a secret language that we're not including him in. And I'm like, oh, you're so sweet. You will at some point, I promise. But no, it's sweet. It's really, I don't know. I'm just really, I like to throw myself into things like that. And, the language and all that kind of goes hand in hand. And yeah, it's important to my brother and obviously his wife, my wonderful sister-in-law, and my amazing niece. They're just so cute. I'm so excited. I get to go see them actually here in like 2 weeks. I'm really excited to get to go do that. So I've, kind of looked into just practices or, I guess old pagan practices of that. But, how much can you trust? And, you'd hope to find stuff in like the actual first language or, the original language. And that's obviously very hard to do.
For sure, yeah.
For someone who only has not even like what is like the starting for a language is like C1.
The sort of, the upper beginner, lower intermediate level kind of.
Yeah, I'm very beginner still. So it is a hard language, but yeah. So that's kind of my current interest, but that's not to say that like I would practice it, just that I am interested in learning about it.
Yeah. Did I ever point you to the book Magia by Margit Toth?
Maybe.
So it's somebody who wrote this book on Hungarian folk magic.
Okay, you definitely haven't then.
Okay, I'm gonna send that to you. I know it was endorsed by Judika Elish, so that to me is a pretty strong thing, especially because she is also Hungarian. So.
Yeah, I didn't know that for the longest time. I think I just found that out last year, and I was like, no freaking way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, because I've loved her books since the copy that I have, the big book.
Mm-hmm.
Is one an ex-boyfriend actually got me, the one I dated before my husband.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that is an old book. So I've been a Judika fan for a very long time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she's wonderful. She's actually going to be, she's an interview we've got that will be on, I think in April. I think we'll be releasing that interview.
It's really cool. Yeah. I wanted to be there for that one, but couldn't.
Just the timing didn't work out.
Yeah. Timing didn't work out, but I'm still excited to have her on the show in general. Yes. I think that's so cool.
Yeah. It is very cool. Yeah. And in terms of like things that I'm hoping to work with and learn, kind of where I'm hoping to go. I mean, I'm always kind of interested to learn more folklore in general. Folk magic and folklore has always been a kind of thing. I find though that I'm actually really interested in stuff that kind of moves outside of particular like ethnic communities and into more kind of like social community folklore. So like queer focused folklore is really interesting to me, and like queer focused folk magic. I'm very interested in that. I'm actually really interested in concepts as like, sex magic and, kink positive magic and things like that. That's been something that's been very interesting to me the past couple of years, really.
Yeah.
And then And then I've also got like, I don't think I want to like dive entirely down the rabbit hole of like ceremonial or chaos magic, but I'm always interested in just kind of learning more about them, you know, just because they are influential, they are important. I do think they have something to say to folk magic, and as much as I also think that folk magic has things to say to them too. So, yeah.
Maybe we should try to do an episode on chaos magic because I'm fascinated by it as well.
Yeah, I would certainly welcome that.
And then we get to talk about Ian Malcolm, right?
He's chaos theory. I guess we could get into chaos theory with that. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it would be great if we could get somebody on that's more expert than we are. But right. Yeah, but at the same time, like it's also kind of the spirit of chaos magic to just be like, no, I'm just going to do it. So.
Yeah. Fuck it.
Yeah. Fuck it. We're down. Yeah. If we could there's this guy that I know would be really great to talk about it. His name's John Constantine. I think his name's Constantine. If we can get him on, I think he'd be really good. So. You didn't think I was going there, did you? You had no idea.
I had no idea.
With my luck, I would probably, well, no, that's not true. I have really good luck when it comes to getting guests, but I was going to say like right to John Constantine and I would get Swamp Thing. So. Which also would be cool, but.
My husband would be very excited.
Swamp Thing's great. So
he just finished a Swamp Thing like comic tattoo.
Yeah.
On his calf or something. So yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of leads us into the last thing that I think we should address, which is kind of where are we going? What's next? We still do have some episodes in us, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
A few.
But I mean, we're hitting 15 years. We are seeing
so old, y'all.
we're old. We're a little tired. And I do think that, you know, we're kind of starting to see, we've got lots of really great people talking about folklore, folk magic from a lot of different perspectives that are out there in different formats. You know, we're kind of reaching a point where I think New World Witchery is going to start winding down in 2025 a little bit.
Yeah.
So, which on the one hand, bittersweet, a little sad. You know, it's been a part of our lives. Like I said, you know, it's been, by the time we really do wind this down, I imagine I will have been doing this as, like I said, as long as I had, you know, had a mother on this earth, you know, as it were. So, you know, it's been a part of most of the time that we've been friends. Mm-hmm. So, but it's really interesting. This past year, you and I have spent a lot more time together and like been even closer as friends, hanging out outside of podcast stuff. And that I think has driven home like, you know, I kind of like hanging out with you as a friend more than just like talking to you on a headphone.
Yeah. Not that this isn't great.
Yeah. So.
And, you know, that's also not to say that who knows, maybe in, you know, like once a year, we don't post something like, hey, what are we doing? You know, like don't unsubscribe from the feed necessarily. No, I don't think it like clutters up anything. I mean, obviously do what you're going to do, but maybe check back just because it's not necessarily like goodbye. And then like we walk off into the sunset, you never hear from us again.
Right.
But it's also not like we're leaving, please beg us to stay. And then like we actually stick around and, you know, I don't know. I don't want to just like dwindle away, but I just don't want to make a big deal out of things. But also, like we've been doing this a long time, and I feel like we should give people a heads up, you know, just so they can kind of prepare and be like, this will not be a part of my life in the same way anymore.
Right. Yeah. And we should say, you know, we're really looking at this kind of winding down by the time we get to the end of 2025. Mm-hmm. So we still have, like I said, we have several more episodes. You and I just tonight were like, oh, we should do this topic. So
exactly.
I think we're definitely going to have more. I have interviews lined up. I have several recorded already. So we're going to be carrying this through all the way into the end of the year and get through our kind of regular year of this. And even after this year is over, I think we'll still be putting out the Folk Magician's Notebook monthly and doing those festival episodes as well. And we, like you said, probably occasionally we'll be like, hey, we had a really interesting idea. Let's do an episode about it. But it'll be more spontaneous, I think, after 2025. So, and
also we won't feel so, I mean, not that we feel crazy pressure now, but we won't feel pressured to do witchcraft necessarily. So when we do, it can be a little more organic and we can talk about it if we feel like it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that'll be that. Maybe we can post a little episode and it doesn't have to be this, you know, whole thing with like crazy production value. It just is a thing.
Yeah. Not that our production value is particularly high, but we do our best. Know. But yeah, no, it is, it'll be more spontaneous, just kind of when the mood strikes us, I think, going forward.
Yeah.
And,
but it definitely won't be like very, very frequent. I don't want to get the wrong impression.
No. Yeah. Yeah. It's, like you said, once a year probably is about all we would. Even that seems to imply that we're going to have it on schedule. We're not.
Right. There will be no schedule.
Yeah. It will be, yeah. Other than, like I said, I think well through 2026, I'll still be doing, and obviously you are more than invited to be a part of any of that, doing the Folk Magician's Notebook and the festival episodes. And we'll see kind of where it goes from there. But yeah, we're just kind of winding down the version of New World Witchery that has existed, up to this point. So.
Which is a little sad, but is definitely time. It's just time marches on, and things change. Like I said, the landscape of podcasting has changed at least 2 or 3 times since we've been doing it, and I just it's exhausting. Like the tech stuff behind it that we really don't quite understand. Like we still don't know why we can't get more than certain episodes to appear in Spotify. We don't know.
Yeah.
Or in any podcatcher, really.
We should say that we have gotten almost all of them to appear in Spotify now.
Oh, good.
But there's still a few that don't. So we're like, I don't know. But they're all on our website.
Yeah, that's all we can do. And then I remember when Feedburner went away, we were like, what the fuck do we do now? Yeah, it's just and see, this is all inside baseball stuff that y'all don't need to know or really care about, probably. But that's kind of where our head's at. But so it's like I said, it's definitely bittersweet. It's something I'm ready for, but at the same time, I'm really sad about losing.
Yeah. It feels like a big step. So.
It's we're empty nesting, Cory. We're sending our baby off, and we're going to be empty nesters.
Yeah, it's and justifiably so. It's been it's been around for one of the longest running witchy podcasts out there.
Hell
I think there's a couple that may still be longer than us, but not that many. And and it's not that there's not still stuff to say on folk magic. I just think that there are people that are going to say it better than we will about a lot of things, especially if we're trying to do a topic a month kind of a thing. It's just not as cohesive. But that being said, we will have more episodes this year. We're going to, continue. We've got, like I said, we got Judica Elish on the horizon. We've just decided that we're going to do chaos magic somewhere in here. We're going to have some storytelling episodes. There's definitely stuff coming for the rest of this year. And then, like I said, kind of some of the sort of regular monthly stuff, the Folk Magician's Notebook and stuff like that. Those will continue at least through 2026 as well. So. And if you really can't get enough of us, we will have our Buffy podcast going through probably all of 2026 as well, based kind of on the number of episodes we have left and the trajectory and mistakes. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So we will have that one going too. But I have to
hear our dulcet tones.
Yeah.
And we do talk about witchcraft a little bit over there, but it's mainly about the show.
Yeah. And I feel like, nobody's gonna be super duper surprised by this, but if you are, it's okay. You can always write to us and let us know how you feel about that and everything. And I promise we're not abandoning you. We're still here.
Yeah.
We'll be around for a while. So
yeah.
But
I need to get back into Instagram because I don't like feeling like I've withdrawn, and I really feel like I have, and I don't want people to feel like they have. That sounds weird. I don't know. I don't know what I was going to say. Or maybe I do know, but I just don't want to say it anymore.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't want to be weird or encourage any parasocial type of things necessarily. But I don't know. Yeah. I get it. I've had a few podcasts that just ended abruptly, and I was like, wait, what the fuck happened? Yeah. And it honestly, it's emotional. It's upsetting. So sure, I get it. Yeah. I want people to we talked about this beforehand. We want people to have a heads up. So yeah. 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 No. Yeah. And we're going to continue on for this year, just to make sure that everybody, gets a chance to kind of listen in and know how we're winding down and everything. And yeah. And we just, we are really appreciative for the fact that we have had 15 years and that we've had support for a good chunk of that we've had people, even, I say support, we've had the Patreon support, which is so huge and so wonderful. We have
we have a killer community over there. It's a really, really good community. But even before that, and since that, we've had people that have always, written into us and always, wanted to talk about the same stuff we're talking about. So we're here. Keep doing that, please. Like, we want to keep talking about folklore and folk magic. We just, may not do it in the same way that we've been doing it for 15 years. So,
right.
Yeah. But in the website will still be there. I'm still writing articles for it. I just did an article a month or so ago about planets. So there's,
That's great.
Yeah. We're still putting stuff out there. We'll still be around. We still want to hear from you. We still want to talk to you. We still want to do folk magic stuff with you. Like,
I still want to be like an active member of the witchcraft community.
For sure.
I don't want to. I don't know. I just like see myself like, floating away from the witchcraft community. Okay, I've bestowed my knowledge upon Stu.
Yes, Black Phillip is not showing up and asking us to live deliciously somewhere else.
No. None of that.
Goodness gracious. Okay. Well, if you do want to continue to stay in touch with us, keep talking to us, please write to us, compassandkey@gmail.com or newworldwitcherypodcast@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm. Or you can, go to the website, which is newworldwitchery.com, and you can comment and listen to every single podcast episode that is out there, whether it catches on the pod feed or not.
Yes. Yeah. And I know some people have been a little jarred by the fact that we switched our hosting to Spotify largely so that it can be self-sustaining and we don't have to take it off the air as soon as we stop producing episodes. But if you don't like supporting Spotify, you can always listen on the website, and that does not support Spotify in any way. So,
right.
And you can go there and do that. If you do feel like supporting us financially, we certainly will continue to welcome that. We will continue to have Patreon and have Patreon stuff going on for quite a while. That's not going to disappear anytime soon. We'll have, our Discord server that's going to stay active. We'll do bonus episodes. We'll do bonus stuff here and there. We'll still be, we're working on our annual zine, which we do for Patreon supporters. So that's still a place where you can go, patreon.com/newworldwitchery if you're interested. So, And anything else? I think that's it, right?
I think so.
Well,
must be done.
Lane, we're not done. Not for the year. Not for the whole thing.
No. I just meant for tonight. I'm tired.
No, that's fair. Lane, thanks for revisiting all this with me. Thanks for being here for 15 years. Thanks for being here for the year ahead. And thanks for being my friend. Thanks for being an amazing person in my life.
Same to you. Seriously. I don't know where I would be if you were not in my life. And I just really appreciate you.
Same girl, same. All right. And we'll talk to you again soon. But for now, thanks for listening.
Be well.
New World Witchery is a production of New World Witchery Podcasts and is released under a Creative Commons Share and Share Alike license. The title and closing music for this episode is Woman Blues by Paul Avgernos, licensed from AudioSocket.